We're going to start cleaning up the rest of our component parts for our cross slide. All these parts have been accumulating some surface rust throughout the year. So I want to start getting this thing back together, and these are pretty rusty. So we're going to get them cleaned up, just like the handle right there. This is a little bit more tricky piece to get in there and clean up. So I want to soak them first, try to help eliminate most of that rust that's on there, and then we can kind of give them a polish with the wire brush and get them cleaned up. So we'll use our evapor rust for that. This one doesn't need it. That's just your dial there, your divisional lines on there. Just to where it covers them up. You don't want anything sticking out of the solution there. And then once this is done, you can, save this and pour it back in the jug and keep reusing it. So I don't know how long these will take. I would imagine these aren't really heavily rusted, so they may only take a couple of hours. So we're just going to keep an eye on it, and whenever they look ready to go, we'll pull them out of there and get them cleaned up. So while our parts are soaking, getting cleaned, we're going to move on. This is the base of our compound here. We've already got it all clean, and then we're going to go ahead and install our bronze lead screw nut right here. I do have a video on this if you haven't seen it, machining this guy. And when I made this, I ended up giving it just enough clearance so that it would just start kind of sliding into the hole. This is the mounting hole right there. I didn't want it to be so tight that I couldn't align the threads there. We want to make sure that the threads are aligned with our lead screw this way. It should be pretty straightforward. So hopefully all will go according to the plan here, and we'll get it started in there. It'll go down just like that, and it's starting to get snug there. All right, so I've got my square butt ready, and what we can do is align it like this with the side and bump it down in there. But once we bump it in, I'm hoping that we should be able to just kind of tap it. We've got our soft blow and be able to tap it like that and get it aligned. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and try to get it somewhat aligned as close as we can. And that's looking pretty good right there, just visually checking it out. So let's go ahead and bump it in there. I'm just going to go ahead and use this block of wood here to finish bumping it in. We're just trying not to deform this wall here where our threads are going to be going in there. And that is looking pretty good too. Let's see, I can tell it needs just a touch. That looks like about as close as I can visually see it, honestly. I mean, it might be a couple of thousandths. That's looking pretty good. I think we've got just a touch more to go. There we go. That should be seated right there. I've also verified it this way. Going across our face of our dovetail here and across the face of the nut. Squared up nicely. So we've hit our first snag in the assembly. I was just doing a pre-fit on this, make sure everything was going together. And I'm glad I did, because I realized that we're gonna have to make a modification to our bronze nut right here. So this block of steel, or I'm sorry, not block of steel, this block of bronze that we used for that nut was 1 3/4 inches wide. And I left it that because there's plenty of clearance up inside here. This casting here is cleared out to clear this nut here. Plenty of room. But what I didn't take in consideration was when you're installing it like this right here, when you're setting the two halves together, there's not enough room with this being this wide for the top piece to set down on there. And I'll show you what I mean. But so here's our original nut right there, and it measures 1.25 inches wide, and ours is 1.75 inches wide. So it's a 1/2 inch wider. Let me pull this back. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you should be able to just set this right on down on top of it, right? But the problem is, you can see on this left side here, you got to be able to clear this dovetail in order to get down all the way, but it's already hitting this right side of the nut on the casting. So that little bit of clearance that we didn't give that nut is proving to be a challenge and an error. So we're gonna have to make that nut the same width as this guy right there. So what we're gonna do is bump that guy back out of there, and we'll set it up in the milling machine and mill a couple, mill the two sides down, so that this should, I mean, it's just barely too wide, that dovetail right there, for it not to clear and go down, and it should be able to just kind of pivot down and then be in the center of the casting there. So kind of a bummer there, but not a big deal. We'll make it right. All right, a few bumps. We got it out of there, and you can see where it's hitting that side right there, trying to come down, and then a little bit better look on the width there that we need to match. So maybe we'll set up in a collet block or something, I'm not sure, or the super spacer. We could do that and just do some side milling on it. Before I move on to the machining of the nut, I want to see how our parts are doing here in the evapor rust. So they've been in for 1.5 hours now. There's our bearing housing, and it looks like it's done great. It's already removed that little bit of light surface rust on there, so minimal polishing that we'll have to do on that. So this guy can come on out. I mean, it doesn't need to stay in there anymore. Let me see. This one just had a very small amount. It looks like it's ready to go too. Yeah, I forgot to get this oil out of it. We need to get this guy out because I got some new ones to install. So I think that one's good to come out. And this shaft right here. Yep. That's what's really nice about this evapor rust, is if you have parts with just very minimal surface rust accumulated on it, it really doesn't take long to soak them and get that little bit of rust off there. So I think those I'm going to go ahead and pull out. The handle here, it's still working. This is some deeper heavy rust on this handle right there, and you can see it's still working at that. So we're gonna go ahead and drop that one back in there. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe off some of that existing rust that's on there. We'll put that back in. I did drop in the hex nuts. These are what hold the compound down to the cross slide, and they had a lot of rust on them too, so we're going to let them soak, and we'll just polish those to make them look good. All right, but yeah, that's looking pretty good too there as well, and it's still covering up those handles. All right, so we'll just let that stuff continue to soak, but you can see these are doing excellent right there. Just need a little bit of Scotch-Brite, and those will be ready to go. For our cutter, we'll use this Walter roughing end mill. This is one of the two that I had got to machine the bed rails on the Flex. This one is a solid carbide 4-flute fine pitch roughing end mill, and there should be plenty of flute length there to be able to mill the sides of that. So this should work pretty good and cut down on the chatter. And I use ER40 collets in the KBC mill. All right, we're ready to mill it. I did find the center, so we're working off the center line there. We'll make a rough cut on each side, and then we'll finish it out. I'll feed it by hand just to kind of feel what's going to happen here before I engage the feed. All right, that's doing pretty good. Power feed. I love those free cutting roughing end mills. Speed the feed up just a touch there. All right, we'll offset it the other side. All right. So that was our roughing pass. We still got a 1/16 to mill off each side. So we've got it offset and ready to go. Give it a quick check to see where we landed on our size. We're shooting for 1¼ inch on our width there. And according to our calipers, we're about, looks like 2 to 3 thousandths over. So we're where we need it. That's not a fussy size right there that we need to worry about. It should give us our clearance that we're looking for, hopefully. I'm not gonna worry about this radius up here. I'm just gonna leave this just like it is. I think it looks fine the way it is, you know. So all we're gonna do is just deburr it from this point. Now, you guys might remember that I ended up making 2 of those nuts because, well, we've got 2 nuts and 2 lead screws because my plan is to sell the other as a set in the future at some point, whenever we're done with the project. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up and do this one since we have our setup ready to go, and have this one ready to go there as well. All right guys, I have reinstalled the modified lead screw nut there. We'll give it a test fit and see if it drops on there this time. Yeah, there we go. Should go all the way back and it touches the back of the nut there. And then forward to there. Everything looks good to go. Hopefully everything's nice and centered through the spindle bore there. Man, that feels good. All right. So now we can move on to what we'll do next is, let me get this bearing housing here and show you. So this guy has got some dings on here from people hitting on it over the years. You got some right there. So I'm going to go to the lathe and get this guy deburred, cleaned up, polished a little bit. And what I'd like to do is fit it into the end here. Let's see if I can slide that around a little. So it's going to go into here. Let me see, the pin goes to the bottom. I don't want it to be a press fit, and I don't want it to be loose and sloppy. I want it to where it'll just push in there, and then we'll use the pin to align it and keep it in place there. So we'll do that and then start getting it installed here on the lead screw. It'll be about like so. So we have our two ball bearings and get this guy together. A couple dings that were put in this thing, and you can see where it's kind of rolled it over. This shiny spot there. Just want to get rid of those high spots. Those two look like they might be ready to go. There's a pretty sharp edge on that inside bore. I think I want to chamfer it. Break that edge just a little bit. All right, that's looking good. We'll flip it around and do the same on the other side. This about, I don't know, maybe 3/16 of this sticks out of the compound housing. So there's just little marks on here. And I actually think that for aesthetic purposes, we're gonna face this off. I mean, just take a few thousandths off of it. Let's go ahead and finish our polishing, make sure those high spots are gone there. This is 320 grit, so I mean, and it was used, so you can see it's not really cutting anything. It's more of a polish than anything. So I think I want to make a face cut. That'll make that look a little bit more appealing. Just a few thousandths. We just want to touch it. I didn't even clean it up. Take another two. Cleaned up the face, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll put a little chamfer on those corners there. Either they didn't want to do it or they forgot to whenever they made that piece. Just to break the corner. All right, that guy should be ready for installation now. All right, this is our bore that the bearing sleeve is going to be going in, just like that. This is the tapered pin. So it's going to be fitting in just about like this right here. It is a very close fit, and you can see that we can just kind of, it's pushing in there. It's getting a little more snug the deeper you go. So I don't want to get it all the way in there, but I can continue to get it, push it in there. So I think that's going to be a pretty good fit. So my soft blow hammers work perfect. Put my belly up against it. And pull it out of there. So I think this is going to be pretty good right where it's at. We'll go ahead and start assembling. We got to get this gear in here, and then we got to get the bearings pressed into this. I'm hoping that I'm going to end up putting this together in the right sequence anyway. I've actually referenced my video where I took this apart in hopes that we actually put this together the right way. Been working on getting all the other parts cleaned up there. We're just about done. I want to get this guy set up, and we'll polish this shaft right here. This is actually a bearing journal, and it's going to fit through this piece right here. So this is cast iron, and it gets oiled, so it just works as a plain bearing there and spins for that guy. And then the lead screw is the one that gets the bearings. So polish this. I want to polish up these gear teeth just a little bit there as well. I have already polished the gear teeth on this gear right there. That's the mating gear. That's going to go, it's going to fit on there like so. And I think that was it. I've been cleaning up these parts, you know, just simple stuff, cleaning them, scrubbing them, hitting them with the wire brush or Scotch-Brite. There's our bearing housing all cleaned up. Now we still got to do this, and there's a little bit of paint and crud down in those crevices right there. And all I'm going to do is just use just a simple wire brush like this to get up in there, and it's going to brush that rust and paint that's still up in that corner nicely, and it's giving the metal a little bit of a polish there as well. So that's how I'm going to clean this guy, is just like so. That evapor rusted really good, getting all that rust off there. Now it's just a matter of just kind of polishing everything to kind of brighten it up a little bit. So I'll continue to work on that. You can still see there's a little bit of paint down in there. So hit it with that wire brush, it comes right on out of there. So I'll finish cleaning that. But one thing that we got to do, forgot about this, we need to get this ball oiler out of this guy because I've got some new ones to install. So we'll do that next. We'll try this number 4 easy out. See if we can get it to catch the little sleeve. That's it. Now we can clean out that hole and get all that old oil and junk out of there. All right, so we got that ball oiler out of there. And so what I had ordered, I got these earlier in the year. These are some new ball oilers that I purchased from McMaster Carr, 5/16 in diameter, all right? I was hoping that I could find the brass ball oilers, but this is what they had, and that's what I got. And I had even searched on eBay and found a pack of NOS ball oilers, these guys right here, and these are the same size as well. And I actually like how they've got a little step there to kind of line themselves up in the hole. Problem is they've been sitting out in the elements so long is that I just don't like the way the exterior of them looks. I think they're galvanized, so if I go polishing on this, it's going to take the galvanized off of them and they're going to start rusting. So I don't think I'm going to use this. This one's not in bad shape, but two of them there are pretty cruddy. I'm just going to save these, put them in the toolbox, and we're just going to use these that I bought from McMaster. And I've got a punch. Let me grab it. I forgot to grab it. So I've got this little piece of bronze bar that has been used as a punch for years. And what I did, I just went ahead and turned the end to match the diameter of the flange right there. And we'll use that to gently knock those guys in the hole there. So we got that one to do, and then we have 3 over on the top slide of the compound. All right, we'll start with this guy here. I went ahead and cleaned up the edge with a deburr tool. Let's see if we can get this guy started in there. Looks like it's still trying to shave a little of the coating off, but all right, there we go. I like it. A lot better than what was in there. All right, so we got 3 more to do. Let's go over and do those now. All right, so here's our 3 other. These 2 is what you use to oil the ways, the sliding ways. This one here is to drop oil down onto our bronze lead screw nut. All right, and I want to point out that I just cleaned all this out. I cleaned all the holes really well using this heavy duty degreaser right there. There was still grease and grime stuck in there, and that stuff does a really good job of breaking it out, and then you take the air gun and blow it all out. So everything is nice and clean now. I don't have to worry about the holes being dirty. So let's try this again. Definitely trying to shave. These are measuring about 5 thousandths big, so it's trying to shave a little of that galvanizing or zinc, whatever it is. Probably zinc coated. There we go. All right, there's one. This guy here, this is where it fits. It'll have the other gear mounted in there, but I'm just doing a little mock-up so you can see. It's going to fit right there. You got 3 bolts that bolt it in. And that looks like it's lined up right where it needs to be. So I'm glad that I got those. They definitely need to be changed out. So we'll go ahead and move on and start getting the rest of this together. Got the shaft polished up in the lathe. And what I want to do now is go ahead and just give these gear teeth a little polish. So what I got is this wheel right here. And what I have done is I've shaped this on the pedestal grinder to fit the profile of the gear teeth right there. It doesn't need much. We're just kind of just polishing it, getting rid of any burrs that are on there. Sometimes they build up just little slivers of metal and chips in there too. I love that new grinder, that Aircat. It's nice and quiet. And don't have that stupid safety switch on there. You push it and it goes. So that's all it needs right there. It's cleaned up. That should be good to go. All right, let's get this going. All right, so the shaft will come in from the back side just like this here. You have to do it this way because the gear would not fit through the bore. That's what I was trying to get at. You have to bolt that on and then slide the gear in from the back side. All right, so what I want to do next before we finish putting this together, I got a little bit of whey oil over here. I want to go ahead and put just a little bit of whey oil in there. I'm going to lubricate the gears later. Once we get it together, we'll be able to do that. All right, there's that. Now, I've got two new Woodruff keys here. I've taken these. They're usually really tight. I didn't want to have to beat them in there, so I've taken them. I've filed them with I just lay a smooth file down like this, and I just kind of work it on the smooth file until it feels like it's starting to push in there. And I did want to put, these things were really tough to get out, so what I'm going to do is just put a dab, just a touch of Never Sees. All right. We will clean the rest of that off there. All right, so here's our dial, and then this part is precision fit to it. It fits through here like so. And the way they've got this faced on the back is that this part of this bushing here is actually, I can tell that it's sticking proud of the dial just by a few thousandths. So that whenever you loosen this collar up, that spins easy. It's not spinning on this face here. This stays stationary on it. So we got to get this on here now. Let me put a little bit of oil on here and see if that will help get this together. See if we can get it on here. It's going to be a close, snug fit to get it on there. Can't tell. It looks like it's hitting that key. I think it is.
There it goes.
that. Put a little bit of oil in here. Yeah, that feels nice. So this is the one that you loosen when you want to move the dial. Tell you what, we'll put a little drop of oil on there too. So now we have our handle that's going to go on there. Okay. All right, and then all that's left there is this guy is what they use to secure the handle on the end of the shaft there. We're just going to screw it on there hand tight for now and leave it just like that. All right, we're going to go ahead and get this gear pressed onto the shaft there. I've got it started by simply just trying to push it together with my hand, so it is started there, lined up with the Woodruff key. And I wanted to say that I've actually verified that it's going on the correct direction based off the photographs I took whenever I removed it from the cross slide. So since I don't actually have a press in the shop, well, I got the smaller press over there, but I don't have a press big enough for this to go in to press it. We're just going to use this method right here. I've got a socket, and this will fit down over the shaft to clear it. And we'll use a soft blow. It shouldn't be very tight, so let's see. And the key already messed up because now it's trying to push the the Woodruff key out of there. So already messing up. Let me see if I'll get a punch and I'll see if I can tap on this key to try to get it to pivot back down up underneath there. But if not, we'll have to push it back off. And that was it right there. We got her. Try this, tell you what. Let's do this since it wasn't too tight. So we didn't have it quite far enough out of the soft jaws here. There we go. That worked out good. The perfect fit on that gear right there. And so the rest of the shaft here is going to slide up into the two ball bearings, and you'll have a bearing lock nut that goes on the end. All right, next up we've got our bearing housing here. We've got our two new SKF bearings. I believe these were 3201 is what the size was. I'm sorry, 6201. I went ahead and pre-oiled them. They feel silky smooth. And I've kept them in the box in this bag here so that the dust doesn't collect on them. Just as smooth as silk. So this will use our little Famco arbor press, and it should be pretty simple. Right there, we've got a socket that's designed, well, I mean not designed, but the size to where it will just fit inside the bore there, and it's only pressing on the outer race. So we'll go over to the little Famco and get these guys pressed in. We're going to go in for the, what hopefully will be the final assembly. And I have kind of gone back through my previous videos and photos to see how it all came apart. And I'm hoping that it's going to go together smoothly. So let's go ahead and give these guys a final wipe down. Get any dust off of them. I really like the way that flaking pattern turned out on this bottom side of this slide. I just think it's a very beautiful pattern, and I'm happy the way it came out. So we've got these all wiped off here. The plan is to set this down on there. We're going to screw the spindle in there. We'll screw it in, and then hopefully we can get the sleeve here, the bearing housing, to push up in there without too much fuss and get it all together. And then once we do, that should be it. All right, so we've got her clean. Go ahead and put a little bit of, this is whey oil that I've been using here for the machines. Go ahead and make sure that it's oiled up good. And let's see, let's get a little on the dovetail here as well. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit in the bronze nut here. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit on the top slide here as well. All right, got some oil on the dovetail slide. I think we are ready to go. Okay, there it is. Nice. All right, we'll put a little bit of oil on our Acme thread here. And the plan is just kind of screw this in here as far as I can, and then we'll pull the top, we'll slide it back, and hopefully we can get everything to just kind of line up together. Since that sleeve shouldn't be a very tight fit, we should be able to kind of bump it in there. And the other thing I got to do is make sure that it's lined up with the tapered pin, but this is what's going to help us get the sleeve in its final alignment through the tapered hole there that the pin goes in. All right, I think everything's going together good now. I've got it in a position that I think we can take our sleeve and go ahead and bump it in there. I'm going to try to just visually level out the knot for the tapered pin at the top. We're going to go for it. I'm hoping I got it lined up there. Man, I just about got it perfectly lined up. I'll have to see if I can get you a picture through this hole here. About as perfect as you can get it by eyesight. That looks good. That should be good. All we got left to do now really is to, if we can get that pin in there to line the sleeve up, then we can go ahead and bump it on in for a little further onto our spindle there, so we can get our, we've got a lock ring and then the bearing nut to secure it. All right, there's our tapered pin, cleaned nicely. Look at that. Like it was made for it. Feels good, right about there. I think I see what it is. I think that bearing pushed back. Oh yeah, that's what it was right there. That was it. So we got, that's going to be our retainer, and then the bearing nut. Go on with the retainer. That's what that keyway's for right there. It's back. See if we can get this guy started on there. So we're just going to use a pin punch. I think that's there. We'll try to just very gently kind of tighten it up a little bit. That's feeling really nice. Like butter. I think that's going to be pretty good right there where it's at. I'm going to keep playing around with this off camera just to make sure that we have everything kind of set the way we want, but I think that's going to be it right there. I got to make sure that one of these slots is lined up with one of those tabs on the little spider so that we can kind of bend that down, and that's what prevents this nut from moving and backing off. All right, next up, we're going to go ahead and install our gib. This is our taper gib there. We got her cleaned off, and I'm going to oil it well. I've got the screw here cleaned. Got a little dab of anti-seize on the end of it. So we'll oil this up and get that in there and kind of get this adjusted before I make my final adjustments. I think I've got the bearings set to where they need to be, including this right here. But before I put the oil cap on there, I want to get the gib in there and make sure everything feels right before I set that retainer ring in there for the bearing lock nut. All right, we got our gib here. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the flaked side here. This is your bearing side right there. That's going to be your sliding. The other side is static. All right, just going to push it in there like that by hand. Actually, I already messed up. So we got to get this little slot here is for the screw to set in, and I'm sorry that I'm blocking the camera. Just got to get it started. There we go. Just run it in there with the screw. I'm going to put a little bit of SP350 right there on the end of the screw. Literally no backlash in that. I love it. Let's back it out just a little bit. It's still a little snug. So we'll do some fine tuning on that gib there, but I wanted to get it kind of in place. That's about where it's going to go, but we may do some final tweaks on it. So let me just run this thing in and out a little bit. Make sure everything feels good. That's the back of the stroke there. I still need to put a little lube on the gear. We'll do that as well. I think we got this ready to go. I feel good about where we have everything set. Nope, I still need to, you see the movement right here? So I don't have that adjusted right. I need to do this a little bit more so we can take that backlash out of there. There's a little hole in this nut here. I don't have a proper pin spanner. We can just kind of tap this. I want it to just take up the backlash there. That's feeling pretty good. Man, excited about this. Finally seeing it all come together. All right, we got the tab bent over into the lock nut there. That should be it. So this is the cap that goes on the end there. I think it's pretty cool the way they did it myself. Just stamped oil on there. There's a set screw you stick in the hole that closes it up, so whenever you want to put some oil in the bearings there, you just pull the set screw out, use your oiler like this guy right here, and just squirt a little bit of oil in there. I've got it filed and kind of polished a little bit. And I got it out of there by putting a bolt in there and just kind of snatching it out. I'll just press it in finger tight like that right there. That should be good to go. Got the original set screw that they used to plug the hole here. A little slotted set screw. All right, guys, this thing is back together. It is done. We've got one more little thing to do, but the movement of the screw, it's nice and smooth. I love it. So I'll tell you what, let's run this forward. That's as far as it'll go right there. I want to go ahead and flip this guy up. It's heavy. All right, and then right in here where our gears are, yeah, we need to go ahead and let's lube those gears. We'll put some grease on there because this is something that you don't normally get in there and lubricate. So we'll go ahead and do that next, and then that'll be done. It'll ready to go back on the lathe. All right, now you can see our gears. We've got her moved out a little bit more. I'm just going to use this Staplex red grease on the gears. Put a little bit on this bottom gear and it should transfer to the top. It's got a little bit of oil on there too, so that's why it's kind of trying to slide off on me. All right. That should be good. All right, well, this thing is assembled. I know I keep saying that, but we just got the grease on there on the gears. I'm going to lay it back down, and this guy is going to be ready for the lathe. Just like that. So, really excited to finally have this guy back together. It feels great. We'll do some final tweaking with our gib once we get it bolted in, and I can move this around with an indicator and kind of see what our play is in there. But I still got a few more little hardware pieces over there in the evaporust. I need to get those out, clean those up. Next phase from here, we're going to take this over to the lathe, get it mounted up, get our tool post mounted, get it bolted on, and hopefully in that video, we'll also be making our first test cuts on the American Pacemaker. So pleasure seeing this back together. I hope you've enjoyed following this little project and getting the compound all reassembled. And we'll see you again very soon.